This session is now being recorded, and I think I'll hand over to Vanya.
Great, thank you, Darren. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's bang on 2 o'clock, and let's get started. So I thought we'd start with a quick introduction to tell you how this webinar came about. So an initiative called Business by Her launched in January this year with Wirecard and the Emerging Payments Association of Africa as founding members. Our mission is women development, and we're creating a forum of influential women that can represent women's interests through a supportive community. We hope to be catalysts to profound change in society, which is why everyone, not only women, are always welcome at our events. At one such event about a month ago, our speed training session addressed personal brand building and highlighted the need for something a little extra. So we've collaborated with TalentintheCloud to extend the LinkedIn profile optimization to our delegates and anyone who wants to market themselves and their organizations in this digital age. So a little bit more about who the organizations are that are listed here that you can see. The EPA is the Emerging Payments Association of Africa, and you can see the picture there. Ghislaine is on the call as well, or on the webinar as well. The Emerging Payments Association of Africa is the commercial membership association of the payments industry influencers. They have a global footprint across the UK, Asia, and now Africa, and their aim is to be the voice of the payments industry across the globe. They provide a platform for thought leadership conversations, opportunities for innovative collaborations, and knowledge sharing. And then Wirecard is one of the world's fastest growing digital platforms in financial commerce. Our focus is on shaping the future of digital payment solutions. We offer businesses a constantly growing ecosystem of value-added services for innovative digital payments online, mobile, and at the point of sale. Wirecard offers a constantly growing range of forward-looking technologies and a flexible, customizable service for cashless payments. So why did we collaborate with TalentintheCloud? They're a leading provider of executive talent to the international fintech sector with specialized focus on emerging markets. They've helped some of the fastest growing fintech companies, including us at Wirecard, to scale across continents by providing access to unrivaled networks of executives. Additionally, they proactively enrich the industry by promoting gender diversity and equality. And now just to introduce Darren Franks, who's our speaker today to lead us through this webinar. He's the CEO and founder of TalentintheCloud. He has 20 years in international search in Europe, across the Middle East and Africa. He's an advocate of gender diversity and inclusion. He's got 15 years on LinkedIn, 26,000 connections, and he's generated over $5 million in business from LinkedIn. So Darren, over to you. You certainly are the man to lead us through this one.
My word, that's some introduction. Thank you. Thanks very much. I think just to put some of that in context, certainly the last number there, that sort of $5 million, we could probably attribute more revenue, quite honestly, than that number. If I look back over the 15 years that I've been using LinkedIn, so it's way more than a social media site. This is a business collaboration and tool that will enable you, when used properly, to really extend your business, your reach, whatever other goals you set for yourselves. So what we're running through today, brief introductions, which I think Wendy has done. Thank you very much. Talking through why your LinkedIn is so important. That's a very quick slide. A bit about how LinkedIn works, and then we get on to how to optimize your profile, the do's and don'ts, and we've got some really interesting, I think they are anyway, tips and tricks for you at the end, just to make your experience on LinkedIn a little easier, because it can be quite noisy, and just to really get the most out of LinkedIn. So, one thing to think about. In the course of your career, how many people really see your CV? Not many, huh? Now think about how many potential people can see your LinkedIn profile. Now, that's quite some scary numbers there, if you think about that. I would imagine the average CV probably gets viewed in someone's career maybe 100 times, maybe 200 times. You can do that in a couple of hours on LinkedIn. And whilst we're not certainly saying here that your LinkedIn should be a copy of your CV, certainly elements of that should definitely go into your profile. So that's something really important to think about. I'm just going to run through some key stats here that I managed to find on LinkedIn. some of these are really quite insightful. So 2 professionals join LinkedIn every second. 45% of LinkedIn users are in upper management. 57% of LinkedIn use is on mobile. Please keep that in mind. Whatever we're going to cover today, it's really important that you cross-reference and you cross-check your profile in terms of how it appears, both imagery, text, the structure. 57% of LinkedIn use is on mobile. Really important. Over 2 million posts a day. We wonder why LinkedIn is so noisy. 94% of B2B marketers use social media to publish content. 91% of executives rate LinkedIn as their first choice for content, and 80% of B2B leads generated on social media. And then when we look at the number of registered users on LinkedIn, I don't think this really tells the whole story. So there's 610 million registered members as of March of this year. But an interesting stat I got from actually from someone at LinkedIn, who name I cannot give out, 43% of LinkedIn users are inactive. So that means that 43% are not logging into LinkedIn on a consecutive basis in every 6 months. So it's a 6-month rolling period. 43% of people only check it maybe twice a year. So please don't rely just on LinkedIn for whatever uses you're intending to use it for, which we'll come on to shortly. It is a tool, one tool, and part of your wider business development, job search, and research strategy. So LinkedIn. What do we use it for? And before we even begin to think about connecting to people and sending out messages and building networks, when you're looking at your profile is not about you. It's about your audience. That's really, really important. It's marketing 101. Whatever content you write needs to be digestible and relevant to the audience who you're hoping to connect with. So yes, you can talk about your services and your products and your background. Don't make it too salesy. We'll come into more detail in a bit, but this is not about you. This is about what you can offer and why someone should connect with you. Remember, 610 million users. You need to stand out. So what are you going to use LinkedIn for? Now, obviously, there are numerous things. It's a very, very busy place for recruiters like us to go and find people like you. So, looking for a job is one thing, or being found for a job. Developing partnerships. You might want to use LinkedIn for business development. You might want to use it to raise funding. You might want to use it for research. You might even want to use LinkedIn to raise your profile to be a speaker. The amount of times I have conversations with people and they say, oh, I'm looking to build my network. What does that mean? What are you looking to get out of that? You need to have an end goal in mind. If you don't, you'll just, you may as well just be on Twitter or not even Facebook, because LinkedIn is so super targeted. The amount of data available within LinkedIn is a marketer's dream and a recruiter's dream as well. Hence why we're doing this webinar to try and help you guys build your profile so we can find you a bit easier. But you have to have a purpose in mind. Now, it doesn't have to be one. So you could be looking at being a speaker as well as doing business development. That's fine. You could be looking at raising funds as well as doing research. That's no issue at all. But you just need to really be clear about what you're looking to get out of LinkedIn. So before we get into the good stuff, it's always good to get a measure of where you are in LinkedIn's terms. So LinkedIn has something called the Social Selling Index. If you just Google that and you type in Social Selling Index and LinkedIn, a couple of clicks and you'll get a bit of a dashboard that looks like this. It's useful. I wouldn't get too hung up on this. Obviously, LinkedIn is a commercial business, and a very profitable one at that. And they're never going to say you want to score 100 out of 100 because they're obviously keen for you to subscribe and pay subscription charges. But it's a very good benchmark. So before you make any changes, have a quick look. So Google Social Selling Index LinkedIn and get your score. And there's some other interesting stats on there as well that you can sort of see where you rank in your network and what have you. But this is the one to look at. And as you can see, they've broken it down into 4 sections: establish your personal brand, find the right people, engage with insights, and build relationships. Now, unfortunately, LinkedIn don't publish their algorithms. They don't tell us how they quantify your professional brand, or how they quantify, how you engage with insights, other than sort of clicks and likes and what have you. So a bit of it's trial and error, but it would be really good if you took a snapshot now, put a note in your diary to check it in 4 weeks' time. That's obviously assuming you make some changes, and see how that increases or decreases, hopefully not, over the next couple of months. LinkedIn is not a quick fix. You can't just go and build a connection of, a connection base of 5,000 people overnight. You can't become a social influencer overnight. All these things take time. So the more you put in, the more you get out. Now, before we start looking at your profile, you need to understand a bit more about the people you're trying to connect with. What's in it for them? Who are they? How are they going to find you? Why should they find you? Or why, if you find them, why should they connect with you? So again, kind of going back to a sort of marketing school, let's build personas. Now, you can have multiple personas. That's no issue at all. There are some really, really great tools online, completely free. I would recommend the HubSpot. So if you type in persona and HubSpot, you will see there's a link. You can download some documents, and you can go and fill in your persona types. What's great about this is it puts you in the mind of the person or the people that you're trying to connect with. So the more information you can fill in here, the better the outcome will be, and the more targeted your approach will. We will also use this a bit later on when it comes to building your network. But again, when it comes to positioning your network, building your profile, it's really, really important to do this. Have 3, 4, 5. It doesn't, I wouldn't say more than 5, but what the idea here is to really understand what the average, in this case, the CMO, what are their typical interests? Where do they spend their time socially? What are their pain points? What's their general persona? Maybe it be gender, maybe it be age, it could be pretty much anything. And when you start to uncover what the persona is, you'll start to realize that actually, if I'm going to build my profile and I want this person to be able to connect with me, take it seriously, etc., you need to mirror a little bit of this as well. It's kind of virtual NLP for those HR practitioners out there, or anyone that's studied NLP. It's mirror and match, and it applies exactly the same on LinkedIn, or really any sort of marketing that you do. Now we're going to jump into the profile. I appreciate I'm going through this quite quickly. I didn't realize it was we were only 13 minutes in. Hopefully we've got some. We'll certainly have some time for some Q&A at the end. I might take a few questions as we go. Actually, just a quick question. What was that persona and HubSpot from Joy? Joy Marie, hi. So if you go to, actually, let's see if we can get it up now as we're on. We do this live. Let's have a look. It's HubSpot. Persona template. There we go. This is the one. So this is a great tool, even not necessarily just for LinkedIn, but if you're in sales or marketing, recruitment, this is really good to be able to understand what your personas are. Here we go. One is my persona, build my personas, and then you just go through this process. So this might be person I'm looking for, and it's a CMO, and then we start going through this process, and it will ask you numerous questions, and at the end you'll get a really nice looking PDF. So I hope that answers your question there. Perfect. So let's go dive into LinkedIn. I'm not just going to use my profile through this, but I thought I'd just take a few screenshots and summarize some of the key elements. We'll pop over to LinkedIn and have a look at some of the other profiles shortly. But when you are planning your profile, you don't have to fill every single element in. There are various different modules that you can choose to leave out or include, whatever it may be. But the core ones and the really critical ones are your headline, is your about us, which is sorry, it's here, just under that bit here, where you can put some content. Any articles, and we'll cover that back in a minute in terms of, is it a good thing to do that or not? And then your experience. Lastly, skills. Again, if you're kind of searching for, you're using LinkedIn as a job search, that's really good. The way that this works, just to give you a bit of insight, a number of companies use something called an ATS, an applicant tracking system. Some of the enterprise grade ATSs are integrated within LinkedIn, and when someone posts a job or does a search, it doesn't actually search your profile, it searches your skills, and it will match you based on your skills. If you've ever looked at a job on LinkedIn and it says, you rank in the top 20% of people that have applied, it's looking at your skills and a little bit about your experience. So do add that section. It's pretty good for SEO as well. And the last bit is recommendations. We'll come back to that bit because it's very important. I've got a question here. So it's individual focus. What about company focus? That must be about the personas. You can build a profile of the types of organizations you're looking to work with or looking to engage with, but ultimately LinkedIn is a one-to-one networking tool. This is not about engaging with a brand. Yes, you can follow their company page, you can like some of their content or what have you, but ultimately it's about getting to that person. So you may say, right, here are the, I want to work with all the construction companies in Joburg, for example. Here's a list of the top 300. Well, that's great, but what are you going to do with that, and who do you need to speak to there? These companies may employ 10 people, 10,000 people. Again, you need to be very clear on who you're looking to engage with. Typically, once you've been through that sort of persona building, you'll start seeing that there's lots of commonality between the individuals that you're looking to connect with. So I hope that answers that question. Right, summary and pictures. Okay, big thing here. There are 610, or whatever the number was, 620 million users or million profiles on LinkedIn. You need to stand out. The only way really of doing that is by content. And I'm talking about your visual content when you first go into someone's LinkedIn profile. Depending on what you do and who you're looking to approach, depends on really the type of pictures, the type of imagery that you have. When it comes to the headshot, it should definitely be a headshot, not a picture with you, in the garden with the kids, or on top of Table Mountain, or whatever it may be. This is a professional networking site. And whilst I certainly don't condone this, people do judge a book on its cover, and unfortunately that's the world we live in. There's so much noise, there's so much data. People will flick. You have to have a picture. I can't stress that enough. People will overlook you. They won't think they may not think it's a legitimate profile. And ultimately, it's about social proof. You've probably read a lot about this, or seen a lot about this. People want some confidence that you are an expert in your market or your trade or your sector or whatever it may be. The only way to really do that visually is with images. So you'll see on mine, a picture of where I was hosting a panel. We chose this profile, or chose this picture from having quite a few others. We just felt it kind of lent itself quite well to my approach and what we're looking to do. The second thing here, at the top, you'll see that there's LinkedIn URL. So you can customize this. Why would you want to do that? Well, a couple of things. One, it's really good for SEO. LinkedIn, apparently, so my sources tell me, do give extra sort of rankings or attribute certain points and scores to having a distinct URL. I'm going to show you how to do that a bit later on. Also, if you are using your LinkedIn profile and you're putting it on other content, maybe your CV, maybe you're putting it on a blog, maybe you're putting it elsewhere, it just looks nicer if you've got a clean URL like that rather than a load of digits and letters in there. So please do that. And lastly, on this bit here, this is the most important part of your LinkedIn profile, the headline. That needs to be very, very clear on who you are and what you do. Now we use these things called pipes, just to split the words up. Find them on your keyboard, depending which keyboard you have. But again, it's about ramming home that message. Who are you? What do you do? And why would someone want to connect with you? So if I send a request to, I don't know, a CEO of a fintech business in somewhere, say Africa, somewhere in Africa, the chances are they're probably going to accept my invite. Yes, I'm going to write you a message, and again, we'll talk about that shortly. But it's about social proof. You know, am I who I say I am? Do I have a background? Do I have any sort of recommendations, endorsements, etc.? And the last bit here is about articles. So I'm on the fence a little bit on this one, and I'll talk to you about that. We might as well do that now. Articles on LinkedIn. When you write an article, and I've spent many hours writing articles. You know, I've actually spent money on getting ghostwriters. We publish it on LinkedIn. You get all excited, and it gets like 10 views or 3 likes or something. You can sit there going, "What a waste of time that was." Then I'll write a status update. I did one last week actually, a status update, and it had 10,500 views, 400 likes, and 60 odd comments. That took me about 20 seconds, whereas the article took me hours, and I actually spent money on it as well. So, you know, should you be producing articles? What sort of content should you be producing? I do have a view on this. This is not a LinkedIn view. This is a personal view. I think you should definitely have 2 or 3 evergreen content articles. And what I mean by that is content that is not going to get old. So, for example, in our world, we do a lot in diversity and inclusion. We also talk to a lot of clients about data privacy and GDPR and the POPI Act. So I've got an article that sits on my profile, which is all about GDPR, and that just sits there. That's not going to change. That's what people see when they come onto my profile, and that's fine. Perhaps if we spent a lot more time, a lot more money, writing articles and sort of making clever links and what have you, we might get a few more views. But generally speaking, the updates get more traction. Right, now I'm going to do a live critique. I'm actually going to use Vanya's profile, with her permission I should ask, and do a bit of a critique on hers live. So Vanya, please forgive me if I'm not going to be rude, I promise. I'm going to be constructive. I hope that's okay.
Totally cool, thanks.
Awesome. Okay, good stuff. So I made some notes because I'm not doing this ad lib. So first things first. Vanya, really important. I think you need a background image. Now, obviously, I know you work at Wirecard. You know, you guys have got some amazing content. You've got some fantastic images because you've sent me quite a few for the last couple of years. You know, your goal here, correct me if I'm wrong, but is to recruit and to build the Wirecard brand and hire talent into Wirecard here in South Africa. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, great. So my recommendation would be a really nice team photo, maybe a photo of the offices, maybe a photo of you guys on one of your away days, a conference, wherever it may be, but just something that shows the brand. That's really, really important. Whilst we're talking about the brand as well, what I've noticed is your company is Wirecard Africa Holdings Pty Limited. Now, I'm sure that's probably the legal name for Wirecard here in South Africa, but if I click on this, I'll show you what happens. There's only 2 employees at Wirecard. Okay, so what I would do in this case is I would link all your profiles and definitely all your staff's profiles back to, so you can navigate back to Wirecard. Now you can mention within your, sorry, it's not navigating it again. You can certainly mention within the text here that, you know, Wirecard brackets Wirecard Africa Holdings Pty Limited, etc., etc. But you definitely need to associate this to the Wirecard group and the Wirecard company pages. Same with the previous role as well. And if these guys are still in operation, then it's always good to link it directly to the company.
Okay.
A couple of other things as well, Vanya. The hunt is on for great talent. Look, I know what you do. That's because you and I know each other, but I'm not sure that really tells anyone else what you're looking for. What is great talent? Are you looking for software developers? Are you looking for engineers? Are you looking for salespeople, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And whilst it may be broad, one day you're looking at developers, and the next day you're looking at a sales consultant or whatever it may be. I think you could probably flesh that out a little bit more. We're building Wirecard in South Africa or in Africa to do XYZ, and we look for top talent in these areas. LinkedIn works on keywords, and we'll come into how LinkedIn works a little bit later on, just in terms of the structure. So the more you have in there, for example, if you're looking for software developers, you need to put into your profile, the hunt is on for great software developers or great architects or whatever it may be. I think if we scroll down a little bit further when we talk about your experience, this talks about Wirecard. So this is what Wirecard is. Okay, and that's fine, but I can get that from clicking on the Wirecard logo. What I don't know is what you do. I don't know much about what your role is at Wirecard. I don't know much about actually if I'm coming into the market and I don't know who Wirecard is because, you guys only recently sort of changed or rebranded as Wirecard prior to being MyGate. So people don't recognize that, or many people won't recognize that name. So you can be quite descriptive there. I personally wouldn't use the sort of corporate spiel. I would make it a little bit more engaging. I think corporate can be a little bit dull. No offense. But I think this is your profile. Just because you're working at Wirecard, this is you as an individual. So I would use that opportunity or this opportunity here to beef up a little bit more about who is Wirecard, what's the culture. You can put pictures in here as well. You can really create the employer brand from your profile. And I think once you've done that, and if you have other colleagues in the business as well who can take snippets of that, maybe slightly adapt it, maybe Shelley or Hannah can do the same, and all of a sudden you start to build up a bit more credibility is not the right word, but a bit more recognition in the market of who Wirecard is.
Stunning.
Okay. Did notice that one in the articles that you published, and again, based on my sort of previous comment, I think it's important to have a couple of things, but I certainly wouldn't spend hours and hours, messing around with fancy content. But again, you can use this as part of your employer branding. So if you have videos, any of your events or from any of the team shots or the rebrand a few weeks ago, any really nice pictures from that, I would include that. People are very visual, they like to see things. If you can put that into your profile, I think that will help massively.
Awesome.
And last but by no means least, I think you should definitely get some recommendations on here as well. It certainly helps. And these recommendations can be a multitude of things. They could be colleagues, they could be previous customers if that applied. Or I think if I was, again, yourself, Vanya, who have I recruited at Wirecard? What was their experience and what were they going to say something nice about me and something nice about the process or about the company or about why they joined? Again, you can use this as an employer branding tool as well. So I would be inclined to connect with some other people within the business who you've had, you've influenced or you've impacted them joining on to Wirecard and getting some references from them in terms of the process and how it was handled. Again, it's really, someone that's interested in looking at Wirecard as a potential employer can come on and look through and go, oh, wow, okay, there's 20 people that have joined Wirecard in the last 6 months, 12 months, and this is what they've got to say about the business. Again, it just adds that social proof.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's great advice.
That's my critique over. I hope we're still friends after that.
We're still friends, Darren.
Oh, good. That's good stuff. A couple of questions that popped through, actually. When describing what you do, should you use I or a third-party language? Great question. Again, personally, this is my profile. It's about me. I would always use it as the first person. So I've done this, I do this. I think if you write it as, Darren did X, Y, Z, or Vanya did X, Y, Z, it looks like it's been written for you. And that's not, I think people would argue one way or another on this one, but personally, my personal preference, it should be in the first person, definitely. Great. I'm going to flip back to where we're up to. So let's go back to searching and connecting. So we use the persona, we built these personas, which is great. So we've got an understanding of who our target audience is. How do we then go and find them on LinkedIn? So there's a number of things we do, but the key thing is how to build the keywords. LinkedIn works by keyword searching. However fancy they say their algorithms are, it's keyword searching. So what do? We take their job title as the first thing. It's a really good way of filtering and condensing what you're looking for. So let's have a look at a chief marketing officer. Now, a chief marketing officer is not necessarily just going to be called a chief marketing officer. It could be a marketing director. They could be head of marketing. They could be CMO. They could be, head of growth or VP of growth. There are so many different connotations. So it's important to build those in. Don't get too carried away with those, but let's build out some strings. So again, maybe set a small spreadsheet, put in job title. What are the job titles we're looking for? Then let's have a look at some of the keywords people are using. So, this lady here, for example, return on marketing investment, CRM, applications, funnels, conversions, demand generation, all of these elements are real keywords, are really, really important. Not, if you just rely on searching for someone's job title, a chief marketing officer in a 10-person company is very, very different from a chief marketing officer in a 10,000 people company. So you need to be looking at other keywords as well. We'll show you how to do some filtering and what have you shortly. So once you've got your keywords, I would definitely put those into some sort of spreadsheet, just so you've got that and it's easily accessible. And then you can start playing around with how to search on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn uses what's called a Boolean search. Boolean is a fancy way of saying it's a search string. It's ands, ors, nots, and buts. Okay, you can get really clever with this. However, it does depend on what LinkedIn subscription you have. That will determine how many results you get back and how in depth you can search. Again, if we wind back to what's the reasons that you want to use LinkedIn for, if you're passive, and I can't imagine anyone is on this call, otherwise you wouldn't be spending an hour of your lives listening to me drone on for today. So I'm hoping everyone on this call really is kind of embracing LinkedIn and wants to promote themselves in some way, shape or form. Is it worth the investment to a premium subscription? I definitely think so. I can't remember the cost in rand, but the basic one is very basic. It's not going to give you that many search results, and the way that you can search is going to be, again, quite limited. But I'm going to dive straight in to show you how the search thing works. So I did one a bit earlier. Here we go. So let's just run this search. Take it down. So I'm looking for someone in the payments or remittances industry. So I'm going to click search, and you can see there I've put this in brackets because I'm looking for payments, and the or and the and the not has to be in capital letters. Important, and remittances. So now it's brought me up a whole load of what looks like noise, and I can't really work out what this is, but I'm going to click on people because that's what I'm looking for here. Now, I've got 3.476 million people. Sorry, I sounded like a former president there for a minute, but 3.4 million people who have come up in that search, and that's way, way, way too broad. So I'm going to filter this a little bit more. So let's have a look. I just want to find everyone in Joburg, payments or remittances. There we go, 42,000. Now, that's still a lot, quite frankly. So I think I'm going to filter this a bit more, and I'm going to say that I don't want anyone from, let's say, ABSA or Headbank. Okay. Actually, sorry, I need to put these into quotations. $39,000. Okay, now that's still a big number. So I'm going to filter this even more. So if you click on all filters, and you can then filter based on what level of connection they are, who they're connections of, locations again, industries, past companies. Now you need to be a bit careful here. The reason I say that is because I might be looking for someone that is in human resources, as an example, working in the payments or remittances sector. Now, I don't know whether they're going to call themselves or mark themselves down as being in financial services because they work in banking or they work in payments, or they're going to be in human resources because that's their trade. I would be very, very careful about using some of these filters because they're not overly accurate. It's always better off to use the Boolean searching like I've done up here. But what you can also do is use that Boolean logic on this bit at the bottom. This is quite hidden with LinkedIn. So I can look for CEO or I don't know, CFO. Let's have a look. There we go. I've got 529 results. So that's really good. That gives me a much more manageable list to go through. So that's how some of the searching works on LinkedIn. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or wants me to run through any of that in a bit more detail. That is, there are long courses for months that train you on how to do Boolean-based searching and X-ray searching and all other sort of clever stuff. This is really a very quick and dirty overview on how to search on LinkedIn. No questions coming through. Okay, great. So now we get to the good stuff. We've done our profile, or we've optimized our profile. We've built a persona in terms of in terms of who we're looking to connect with. We now want to reach out to people. So we've done our search, we've got our long list of people. What do we do now? A few things. First of all, don't just click send a request unless you know that person. Give them a reason. People, I don't know what the average sort of number is, but I mean, I probably get 50, 60 requests a day. Most I ignore because they haven't written to me. They haven't told me what they want to talk to me about. LinkedIn has a cap, by the way, just if anyone's got a large number of connections. LinkedIn has a cap of 30,000 connections. After that, you can't do anything. So I spend a few hours a week going through and deleting people that I sort of connected to 15 years ago and aren't relevant to what I do now. So make sure you send a note. Now, what that note should be really, again, depends on your persona. Depends what you're looking to do. Please don't send someone a request saying I'm looking for a job. Don't do that. Please don't send someone a request saying, I'm looking to sell something to you. It's not going to work. You need to get into their mindset. Why should that person connect with you? What's in it for them? And again, don't sell. Please don't sell. A connection request is a bit like a first date. Certain things you don't do on a first date, and selling on LinkedIn, you definitely don't do that first. So make it friendly, make it engaging, give people a reason to want to connect with you. Feel free to name drop. I see you're connected to Vanya, and I'd really like to connect with you as well. Looks like we've got some mutual connections, or we operate in the same sector. I'd like to invite you to join my network. Something like that. It's when you open your LinkedIn, you've got a lot of requests coming through, connection. It's just noise. Again, I'd encourage you not to accept every invite that you get. Make sure people have a reason to connect with you. The other thing is that don't breach LinkedIn's guidelines for connection requests. Now, they keep changing this. They're massively pushing, build your network, but they do have a cap on it. So you can't send out, I think from memory, it was 300 requests, live requests. So what happens is you go into LinkedIn, you send out requests. When you get to 300 and you want to start sending some more, you're going to get an alert saying you can't connect to anyone else without having their email address. You don't want that to happen. It's a pain to get unlocked and defeats the object of having LinkedIn. So what's important to do is when you go into it, so I can show you here. I go into my, I think it's my network, here we go, invitations. If I click on invitations and see all, I believe. No, I've got to find it now. So I usually do this on my phone. It's actually easier to do this bit on your phone than on the PC. I can't think where it is. Connection requests. I'll come back to you. I'll remember at some point. But it's really important to remove the connections. It's going to drive me mad now. Show more. I think it's here. No, we didn't change it again. Who knows? I'll come back to you on that one. But there's a way of looking at the invitations that you've sent and removing those invitations. It's really important just to do a bit of housekeeping on LinkedIn. They seem to get funny about that. And then track your acceptance rates and tweak. So what I mean by that is, look, LinkedIn's great, but what it's really not good at is giving you analytics on a personal level. It's good for company analytics, but personal, it's not. There's a few tools out there that claim to be able to give you the analytics based on people that have viewed your profile and this and that. I've personally not seen one that works yet. So try and track it. I've got a way of doing that, which I'm going to come to right at the very end, which I think is going to save you a huge amount of time and really allow you to sort of 10x your connections on LinkedIn. Okay, the next bit. Oh, sorry, tips and tricks. Okay. Oh, sorry, my slides. Here we go. So first things first, make sure your profile is public. Now, there's a bit of a hidden setting in LinkedIn. So if you go to your profile and you click up here, top right, edit public profile and URL, it brings up another page. And you'll see here, this is your public profile. This is what it looks like on the web. And people find you on Google, this is what it looks like. On the right-hand side here, your profile public visibility. Make sure that's on. If it's off, you will not get found. Again, you can choose who sees your profile, your photo. If you want to make all this public or private, again, I personally nothing to hide, and I use LinkedIn as a huge tool for my business. I'm happy for people to see everything. I'm not really worried about data protection. I've got nothing really to protect. So if people want to scrape my data or whatever they want to do with it, that's fine. I don't share my email addresses, but that's readily available online. So just make sure your profile is 100% visible. Otherwise, you will never get found. Secondly, spend at least 15 minutes a day being socially active. Now, what does that mean? That means liking content from people that there's no point you going onto LinkedIn and liking posts and content from people that are completely irrelevant to your network. This is a little bit, I come back to a bit like dating. It's a bit like courting, as my grandparents would say. You know, you need to warm people up. You need to be front of mind. So I'm not saying that every time the one person you're looking to engage with posts an article, you start commenting and liking. That's overkill. Just to be sensible, I think that's the best way, get sensible about it. So yes, track your key people, follow the key people that you really want to connect with or do business with or work with or whatever it may be, and start getting engaged with their content, share their content, because if you share a post or you share an update, whatever it may be, they get a notification. They get a notification in their inbox saying, Darren Franks has just shared your profile. Now, it might not mean anything to them, and they might not care about that, and that's fine. The thing is, what you're doing is you're constantly reaffirming and repositioning how you as an individual, so you're front of mind, and that's really, really important. That's one of the key benefits of LinkedIn, is you can be front of mind to many, many, many thousands, tens of thousands of people, pretty much sitting at your desk. Thirdly, I did mention to Vanya about getting references. It's really important, guys, to get people to endorse who you are and what you do and the job that you've done or the project that you've delivered or the sales that you've made or, I don't know, the conferences that you've spoken at, whatever it may be. make sure that you A, ask the person for a reference, but B, don't just get references for the sake of it. There's no point getting a reference from perhaps peers, or, I don't know, friends and family. Don't do that. This is a professional site, so make sure that the quality of reference you're getting is at the most senior you can. So what we spend a lot of time here is looking at who are key influencers in the market. Now, if I can get a reference from a key influencer in the fintech sector or payment sector, whatever it may be, that's going to be way more valuable to me than having someone in the construction industry saying, "Hey, I'm a great guy," because that adds no benefit to my profile. What you can also do on LinkedIn as well is reorder how your, where are they? It's right at the bottom. Actually, is you can reorder your recommendations. So the top two are always visible. So make sure that the top two are there. If someone wants to see more, they can just click down and they can see them all here. So that's really important. Now, something I mentioned at the event, the Breakfast by Her event a couple of weeks ago, which was, we do a lot on gender, diversity and inclusion. LinkedIn being a US company, there's certain things they can't or they won't allow you to filter on. Gender is one of those things. So how do we get around that? So if we're looking for females operating perhaps in the payment sector, how do we find them? Okay, aside from all the tools we use, but there's a really easy way of doing that. Now, if Vanya, for example, if she's got your profile and someone's talking about, I don't know, your kids, or you talk about being, a working mum or whatever it may be, if you can put them into your profile, people like us can find you. It's very difficult in the world that we live in today to run searches on a name, and it's virtually impossible. So how do we set based on gender? I'm not condoning that one way or the other, but when we do get requirements from clients and they're asking us if we'd like a female for this role, how do we get those females quicker? So if you do add some of these connotations into your CV, your LinkedIn profile, it certainly helps getting found, and that's what all this is about, getting found. Secondly, go and have a chat with your marketing department or your marketing team and ask them about A/B testing. It's really, really important. When you're sending out those connection requests, like I just went through, try different ones. See what converts. If I'm sending out 50 today, or let's make it easy, sending out 100 today with one message, and I'm going to give it 3 days, and then I'm going to see how many replies. So I might get a 60%. Okay, so 60 out of 100 people that I sent a request to have accepted. That's pretty good. What if I tweak that invite, that template, and I sent it to another 100 people, and all of a sudden 75 people accepted? I'm going to start using that template, and so on and so on. It's iterative. It's going to keep changing. So please do that. Keep a track of the types of connection requests you're sending out, and the ones that are converting, reuse them. When you are tagging people, when you are posting content, or you see something that looks really interesting that you think would be of interest to the wider community or the wider network, tag people in your posts. Number of reasons, again, you're front of mind. And secondly, if I'm posting an article, for example, well, not an article, but I'm posting an update about something happening in gender diversity, there's certain people I will tag because A, I know it's of massive interest to them, but B, I know they'll reshare it and it will go to a much, much wider network. A couple of posts we've put on over the last year or so have gone ridiculously viral. We're talking upwards of 300,000 views, and we've actually monetized some of that as well, which has been quite amazing. And that's because we've been able to tag people and because we've gone effectively viral with some of the content. So tag people, ask questions. This is not just about liking stuff. A like doesn't really mean much. It's more about commenting, even if it's I'm thinking about what I'm about to say here, because if you've seen on LinkedIn, when someone starts a new job, it automatically pops up and you can say, congrats on your new role. And it's just kind of, they claim AI is doing that. I'm not quite sure how much AI is involved on that side of what LinkedIn do. But, you know, you can just click and say, yeah, congrats. Make it a bit more personal, you know, put the name in there. Hey, Steve, you know, congrats on the new role. Looks really exciting. All the best. There you go. Done. Again, you're more likely to get a response from someone rather than just seeing a load of people just clicking the button saying, congrats on the new job. Congrats on the new job. More you put in, more you get out. And lastly, it's about, you know, LinkedIn is great. LinkedIn will get you so far in a relationship, but you're not going to do direct business on LinkedIn. Someone's not going to buy something from you on LinkedIn, unless you're sort of a SaaS company where someone can subscribe easily or what have you. But most of the people on this call, having looked through people's backgrounds, we're all in professional services, in enterprise, etc. You know, deals aren't done over LinkedIn. Relationships are formed over LinkedIn. So the idea is to move that relationship through a process and get that connection to the point of an email or a meeting or a webinar or whatever it may be. Now, lastly, what LinkedIn is great at is being able to connect. What it's terrible at is being able to keep track. When you get to a certain sort of size of network, it's really, really difficult to make any sense of anything. Many years ago, before sort of GDPR and Poppy and Microsoft came along to LinkedIn, you were able to go into your connections, you were able to download everything into a CSV and get everything, email addresses of people you've connected to, work history, etc., etc. Now, when you try and do that, the only thing you get is the name, the company, and the job title. That is the only information that LinkedIn will give you. If you want to start getting email addresses, you have to do it manually. Caveat that by saying that there are some automation tools on the market that you can, by all means, try. Please just be very, very careful. If you use an automation tool and it's not one that LinkedIn can find, then that's okay. But be careful. If LinkedIn work out that you're using a plugin or a tool or what have you, they will lock your account and shut you down. As simple as that. So please don't try and circumnavigate this process of building your network. It does take time. What you put in is what you get out. So what it's great at is connecting. What it's terrible at is being able to track process. So here's a bit of a free tool for you and a free tip. I don't know whether anyone's used something called Trello before. Trello is let's open a new one up. There we go. Trello is a task list. What I would recommend everyone does, and it's completely free, by the way, LinkedIn, let's call it mapping. Create my board. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to write a few columns. So, send connection, send request. Then I'm going to say connected. Send message, arrange meeting, or archive. Really, really simple. Now you can get as complex with this as you want. I'm just going to shut that down. So you can get as complex with this as you want. You can add 20 columns, but let's just keep it simple. Secondly, what you need to do is use Google Chrome. And you want to, just take that off, and you want to download the Chrome plugin for Trello, which is this little box up here. Again, completely free. You can probably get it straight through the Trello when you sign up. If not, just Google Trello Chrome and it'll pop up. So what do we do? Let's have a look. Let's just go on to someone. Let me go on to Megan. There we go. So we've got Megan here. Now, I want to send her a connection request. So what I'm going to do, bear in mind, that's there. I'm just going to leave that for a second. I'm going to say, what do we call it? LinkedIn something. I forgot what we call it. LinkedIn mapping. There we go. LinkedIn mapping. Okay. And it might take a minute because I've just created this board. So Give it a second. God, these things never work when it's live, do they? Hang on a minute. LinkedIn tracking. There we go. LinkedIn mapping. So send request. Now, really important, click this little button here, because it will then add her as a, that's really bad. Sorry, Megan. That was Megan. That was a connection onto my board. Watch what happens. Click add, and then I'm going to go back to my board. Look, Megan's in there. Awesome, huh? Then I can write some more information. I can write some comments. If I'm working in a team, I can add it to a team. And then all I do is I keep checking LinkedIn, or when I get an email saying Megan's accepted my invite, I move her. And then I move her to that, and then I move her back. Really, really simple. And it's a great way of being able to track your network. So that's kind of that really. We've got 5 minutes left, and I've got some questions coming through. Vanya, would you, if you're still there and haven't fallen asleep, I hope you haven't anyway. Would you like to?
Certainly not fallen asleep.
That's good to hear. I think there's some questions here. Is there anything else you? Yeah. Do you want to run through those?
Sorry, Darren.
Sorry, apologies. I can run through some of these now, actually, if you want, or would you like to sort of read them out and we can talk them through?
No, we can. So I think you've addressed up until a point. There's one here that I think that we didn't talk about. It said, if I currently have a basic LinkedIn profile, would the search be different? That was around the billion searches.
Mm-hmm. The search structure won't be different. What will be different is the amount of results that LinkedIn will serve up to you. And I think some of the other areas you may not be able to search on some elements, but broadly speaking, the search is the same, the structure is the same, just the results that get delivered are probably going to be less. Well, no, will definitely be less.
Okay. Thank you. Then the other one is a compliment. It says, this has been amazing and great tips. Really appreciate the effort, Darren. Thanks to EPA Africa, Wirecard, and TalentintheCloud from Joy Marie. Thank you.
Very kind. Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah. The next question is, it says, I may have missed the answer, but should you ever pay for the premium LinkedIn account?
I think it depends on what your usage is and what you want to get out of it. It's like with all things, you know, free will get you so far. The minute you start paying, you start getting access to other tools and certainly a much broader network. I would definitely recommend it. I think if people have the budgets to do so, or they can approach their employers and say, look, I'm using this not to search for a job. I'm using this to develop business or build partnerships or build my profile because I want to represent Wirecard, whoever it may be, on the market. I would be having those conversations with your marketing departments or your CEOs or whoever else sort of holds the purse strings, because I think it's now becoming quite a critical business tool.
Agreed. Thank you, Darren. The next question was, with Trello, you download the app outside of LinkedIn and then link it. That was Joe Marie?
Yeah, it's really, really straightforward. So set up Trello. Again, if you just go to Trello's website, I'll just show you quickly. Trello. Here we go. Literally just sign up. You've got a Google account. It makes it even easier. I think it's like 3 clicks. And then it's just a plugin. So this is not scraping any data off LinkedIn. This is not breaching any of LinkedIn's terms and conditions. I can assure you of that. All it's doing is taking a record and putting it into Trello. So have a play with it. If you do get stuck, this applies to anyone on the call. Feel free to drop me a line. I'm happy to talk you through it, or maybe do another webinar if there's a load more questions.
Thanks, Darren. And then the last actual question is there a list of keywords to use in one's description of what you do, or use the Persona app and then use those words?
There's a list of keywords to use in one's description of what you do. I think there's probably, again, some commonality between have a standard in the description of what you do. But again, it needs to be personal. It does need to have the keywords in there in terms of the audience you're looking to attract. Make sure things are spelt right, because LinkedIn's algorithm doesn't pick up spelling errors. But no, I don't think there is a list somewhere. It's really about knowing your audience. And by going through that persona exercise, you really will start to understand your audience a lot better.
Great, thank you. And then Abigail asked if we would share the recording, and I believe you said you would do so.
Absolutely. Might take me a day or so, but we'll certainly email it around.
Lovely, thank you. And the other comment here was, great lessons, thanks. How do I link the company with which I have experience?
How do you link the company? Okay. That's a good question. It's been a while since I've done that. I think if you let's edit my profile. Let's have a look. Here we go. So if I edit this, for example, and then I find the company here. So I'm not going to change that because it will change everything. But if I typed in the company there, say, for example, Vanya, if you type in Wirecard here, that will come up with the Wirecard, probably a list of options. You might have different sort of sub ones, but yeah, that's where you pick and that's where you associate which company you're working for.
Lovely. So some advice I'd like to just give there is I've seen in some instances people haven't paid a lot of attention when they started typing in a company name there, and they end up choosing a company that isn't in fact the company that they worked for. And then you talk to them and you ask them about that employer, and they go, oh no, I never worked there. But it's just a level of care to be applied, because it does sort of start searching for companies on the first couple of letters. So it's quite an important one.
It is, definitely, yeah, for sure.
Lovely. So those are the questions, Darren.
Wonderful. Well, look, thank you so much, Wirecard, EPA, for inviting me to be on this webinar. I've really enjoyed it. I quite like the sound of my own voice. That's not being interrupted, isn't it? But thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's joined today as well. It's great to have so many people, and we'll be sending out some emails with the link to the deck and the recording.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Darren. It really has been incredibly insightful. It's really great to have been able to look at my own personal one, and I hope everybody has the opportunity now at the end of this webinar just to take a couple of minutes to have a look at their profiles and just have a think about how they could improve that. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. If anyone wants to connect with me, feel free to do so, but make sure you send me a note, otherwise I don't know who you are. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to end the call now. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.